regardless of race, language, or religion. Now, that's just part of Singapore's national pledge, but a very important part because setting aside our differences will pave the way for a smoother path to achieving happiness, prosperity, and progress for our nation. Not just for ourselves, but if I may, allow me to suggest another point of differentiation for us to consider. Imagine if it were regardless of race, language, accent, or religion. It'll be even more comprehensive, right? Now, from how we look, to what we speak, to how we sound, to what we believe, no discrimination.
That is right. No discrimination here on the long form with me, Hossan, and my brother, Stanley. Because, we've got another exciting episode lined up for you where you'll be turning your attention to accents and accent bias. Like it or not, we all speak with an accent. Okay, some more pronounced than others, but they're like our fingerprints, unique identifiers that hold so much information. Yet you and I often don't stop to think too much about accents. We hear different ones wherever we go, and sometimes subconsciously accents just leave impressions.
So why do we attach certain qualities and ideas to accents? And is it healthy or even fair to do so? Time now to ask our guest on the Leong form now. Now, Heather Hansen is an accent bias, and she's also a linguistic inclusion expert. She's also the author of Unmuted, which is a guide to professional communication. So if you need that help, do reach out for that book titled Unmuted. Heather's also a TEDx speaker, PhD candidate in linguistics, and founder of training and coaching company Global Speech Academy.
Welcome, Heather. Your name very long, the everything behind it. So your name card must be like A4 size paper. Here's my name card.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I was so looking forward to this chat with you. So we're gonna start off by warming up our brains, our tongues, our hands, so that we can get this ball rolling. Okay, it's word association. Very, very easy. So what I'll do, or Stanley will do, because he's prepared this, he will throw out a word, and then we both have to be the fastest palm, the one that gets the buzzer starts first, gets to answer, all right?
Okay.
To associate with whatever word he says. And then we all pick up from there and we go along. All right? You get it right, 1 point. Get it wrong, minus points, but the points don't matter. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Ready? Heather.
All right.
And Hossan?
Yeah.
First word, English.
Language.
Accents.
Bias.
Bias.
Prejudice.
Pride.
Arrogance.
ACS.
Elitist.
What's this?
Privilege.
Royalty.
King.
King's English. Can I do 2 words?
Okay, all right. We'll stop here. No. King's English.
Cheater.
We should have done King English.
We had already done English.
Yeah, we did.
though.
No repetition. Anyway, there we go. We're warmed up now.
Warmed up.
Very warmed up.
Ready to go.
So I think, Stanley, you take it away. Let's just go into this. What is accent? I was very curious. What is accent bias and all that?
Yes, and just before we do that, I just want to just get more insights from Heather as to perhaps how your career started and, even where you came from, because a lot of people, just by hearing you out, or even, my brother perhaps, he thought that you were from the US, but you're not from the US. So accents.
I am from the US.
Yeah.
Wait, where does Denmark come in then?
You just confused me, Stanley.
We looked at each other going,
right?
am I not?
So you are from the US.
I am from the US.
I know, but
Stanley, how long have you known me?
exactly. But I thought you were from Denmark, and then you moved to Seattle, and you moved to Singapore.
All right, let's hear it from Heather herself.
All
Ladies
right.
and gentlemen.
All right, here's the story.
Clear it up.
Born and raised in California. So, of course, grew up thinking, I don't have an accent. And then moved to Denmark after university to be with my Danish husband, then boyfriend, now husband, happy ending, all well. Stayed there for about 4 years. His job brought us to Singapore. Then I was
Right.
here for 8, had our babies here. Then we went back to Singapore back to Denmark for 4 years, and then came back to Singapore in 2018.
Okay.
So we've been here about 15 years total.
Wow.
I've been in Denmark about 8 years total. I was in America about 22
Oh, growing
years,
up,
the first
really.
22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you for clearing the air.
There you go. So yes, American. But you'd be surprised. A lot of people, even listening to me, don't recognize where the accent's from. So I have taxi drivers who ask, "Oh, you're from Australia?" I'm like, "No." "Oh, you're British?" "No." I've had clients call me and say, "Teach me how to speak like you. I want a British accent." I'm like, "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but
Okay.
that's not
But
going to
I
happen."
think your accent is very, very American. It's standard American.
It would be
Yeah.
considered a general
Yeah,
American
general
accent.
American,
Although
yeah.
when I go back to California, people say I talk funny. So who knows what I
So
speak
maybe
now.
it's kind of like watered down, and the fact that you lived in so many cities as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So having more than half my life abroad now, it's basically I've learned how to speak in a way that's best understood, regardless of who I'm speaking to. So I've learned to slow down a bit. I've changed my vocabulary. I articulate in a different way. I use word endings. I try to say going to instead of gonna, and things like that, right? So through my work, through living different places, interacting with people from all different cultures and languages, you just naturally, some were conscious choices, but many were not, just naturally changing the way that I speak.
Wow, that's really, really so interesting. And what a colorful life you've had going from California to Denmark, Singapore, back and forth. But when was that turning point in your life where you thought, okay, I think accents are going to be something that I'm going to latch on?
Or even before accents,
before
if I may.
accents.
Languages, for that
Languages.
matter. What was it about languages that intrigued you?
Well, I think it goes all the way back to growing up. When I was really little, my childhood friends, my 2 best childhood friends, are both first generation Americans.
Okay.
So one of them, her parents came to America from Fiji. The other one, her parents came from Iraq. So I grew up visiting their houses, eating their foods, celebrating their traditions, learning their cultures. And I think I fell in love with difference from a very early age. I was like the boring Angmo coming in. Like, there was nothing special about me. I was like everybody else, but they were different and it was interesting. And I think that already got me really excited about learning languages, just picking up little things in their house and learning different things. Then I studied German. I had German in high school and university. I got a bachelor's in German. I picked up a second degree doing that. And then studied abroad, worked abroad in Switzerland, Austria, using the German. And then when I went to Denmark, of course, had to pick up Danish. Yeah, so...
Including the butter cookies.
Oh, yes, of course, the butter cookies. The vanillekrans are the best. The little vanilla wreaths. Yeah, they're the best ones. But so through all of those experiences, I really enjoy learning languages. You learn a lot of culture through language. You learn more about people through language. I think it's really important, even with my husband, that although he speaks English very, very well, of course, but when he's able to express himself in Danish, I can understand him on a different level, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you speak languages, it does open a bit more of a door into the person, who they really are. Even I tell people in Denmark, if you don't know me in English, you don't really know me, because I'm a different person in Danish. I'm not as confident to speak up in a meeting. I'm not going to throw my hand in the air, and I'm extremely talkative in English and confident in English, right? So it says a lot about the person when you can speak the language. So I've always really loved languages, and I wouldn't say I'm necessarily good at learning languages. I understand how language works, grammar, foundational systems of language. So if you teach me the rules, then okay, I can learn the vocabulary, slot it in. I know how language works, but I'm not good at just hearing a language, picking it up. I'm not good at hearing accents and picking them up. Like, you have such a talent for that, right? That you can put on any accent. I can't do that at all.
Oh,
I
okay.
sound ridiculous.
But I think there's a commonality, Heather, between you and Hossan. The fact that both of you love languages, and Hossan is totally fluent in French.
It's a hobby of mine. I think listening to people speak, listening to accents and inflections, and I love the tonality and musicality of language.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if I told Stanley this, but I've told some friends that if I had a chance, I'd go back to university and take up maybe linguistics to learn the basis of language.
Is it too late for him, Heather?
No, it's never too late. I'm back doing my PhD,
Wow.
you know? I mean, yeah, with all the 20-year-olds.
Skills future, here I come. But yeah, so then your turning point of moving to Singapore, all right? Coming to this country, and I know I've got a lot of friends who are expats or who just moved here even on a local contract. It's the culture shock is real in a sense. Language, accents, culture is one thing. Then the Singlish comes across. How did you adapt? And maybe tell us some stories of what happened.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. When I first came, my very first job here was teaching a course at a certain Singapore airline. I was teaching the pilots, believe it or not, thankfully not to fly the plane, but how to do better public announcements.
Oh, the
Yes, exactly. The one that's like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to sit back, relax, have a nice flight. And it was all about how to articulate clearly so that the passengers could understand, but also how to shift from that engineering brain checklist over to human brain to build trust and make them feel safe, right? Yeah. And it was a little scary because I walk in the door the first day. I had just arrived in Singapore, and there was another trainer who had started the course because I wasn't arriving until 2 or 3 weeks in. And I sat there and I thought, how am I going to teach this course? I can't understand them. Oh, I was like the international passengers. I thought, I'm having difficulty understanding what they're saying. How am I going to interact with them?
Right.
And that was shocking to me.
Okay.
Shocking. Because I thought, I have all the linguistics background. I speak multiple languages. They're speaking my language. Why on earth am I not able to understand? I thought, this is a real problem, right? Like, think about, all these American business people getting off the boat in Singapore and they can't communicate.
And we're supposed to be an English-speaking country.
Yeah, and you are an English-speaking country, but I just hadn't prepared myself. I hadn't done all the things I would tell all of my clients to do, which is to listen to the local language. And when you hear, well, they speak English there, you just assume
it's what you know as English.
Yeah, it'll be my English because, of course, you're going to speak American English in Singapore. Why? It makes no sense.
No, absolutely.
And that has a lot to do with that privilege, right? That you come from a world where your English is the only English and you just assume that it will be the same. And of course, it's not.
No.
So that was the first shocking thing for me. And then, of course, taking taxis and trying to communicate. And it took about 2 to 3 months before I was really confident interacting. And I had really trained my ear and I had picked up, because accents get easier as you listen to people. The more contact you have, the easier it is.
Absolutely.
And so it's about listening to a lot of the radio, listening to people, talking to people. And there's a problem because when we can't understand, we tend to avoid people.
Right.
Instead of engage more. And that's the only way to make it easier, right? But luckily, after a couple of weeks watching this other trainer, I was able to take over the course. I could understand everyone fine. It was good. But it was very shocking to me that was a problem. And I think it's how you then choose to react to that first shock of whether you'll be successful or not. And that could be in a business situation, working with a new colleague. It could be moving to another country, wherever that accent is popping up for you.
Yeah. Okay. So primarily shock, but I'm sure amongst the shocking moments, there were hilarious moments as well. Would there be?
There were. Probably the best story of all time was when I arrived in Singapore. And I actually didn't realize this was a joke until about 3-4 months later. But at the time, I was just very confused. I go up to immigration and I give them my passport and page through it, very serious, and it's a little scary coming to Singapore the first time. There's a lot of rules, there's like caning and it's a little scary. And he's going through my passport and then he puts it back on the counter and I go to reach for it. And he says, stop. I'm like, okay. He's like, I still have to chop it. And I'm like, why are you going to chop my passport? I'm freaking out in my mind, like, he's going to chop my passport? Why would he chop my passport? What is he talking about? I'm going, you can't chop my passport. I need my passport. He's like, and I can just see him sort of grinning and I don't understand why he thinks this is funny. And then he takes it back and of course it's chop. And he hands it back and I'm still going,
what
what
had
is
just
going
happened,
on?
right?
Yeah. And I walk off and I hear him start cracking up laughing with the like officer next to him. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I'm completely confused. And it's not until 3-4 months later when the HR lady at my husband's company said that I needed to send her some papers to get chopped.
To get chopped.
And I'm going, what does that mean? What are you talking about, chopped? Why do you always say that? And then I learned it's chop, chop, chop with the stamp.
Yeah,
Stamps.
because that's the tagline of my company, Double Confirm Productions, guarantee plus chop. So it means stamp of approval. Guarantee
there you go.
plus chop.
Plus chop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of I know a lot of my foreign friends is when they come here, they go, wow, I have no idea. You're all speaking English, but I have no idea what you just said. Is it? Why is that? Is it? At the end of a sentence?
Yeah.
What is your favorite Singlish phrase
Oh, my favorite?
that we can say on air?
We've got so many economical words.
There's so many good ones.
Is there one that you use a lot yourself?
Do you use one?
I try not to,
Oh, really?
honestly. I try not to because I worry people think I'm mocking them or I'm,
Okay.
Okay.
But I like the words that have so much cultural meaning. I think one of the first ones I learned was kiasu,
Yasu, okay.
which makes so much sense to me. It's such that's a real cultural significant term, right? In Singapore, kiasu and chope, things
Chope.
that are like actions we do, things that explain the culture.
Maybe we can tell you one that we can use that is not mocking at all because you've been here so long.
Yes, I know.
You know?
I'm on your podcast now. I think they should give me a passport.
Exactly.
I
chop
think,
her passport.
Yeah.
So my partner's been here for 20 over years. He's Australian, and he has picked up the most economical phrase to express whatever you want to express is walao.
Walao.
You can go walao.
Yeah.
Walao. Walao. So
That's a good one.
You know,
yeah.
it's
a
just
little bit like ayo.
Yeah.
I like ayo.
Ayo. Yeah. So it's about intonation, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah,
How
so
you deliver
how you
it.
say
That's
it, yeah.
with a lot of Singapore words. You could say it in so many different ways,
Just like
right?
economical rice.
Yeah.
Just point and
Just point
The
at the rice. What do you want to eat?
Yeah. But in general, how would you describe, say, the accent, if you like, of Hossan and myself? Is there even an accent? Or, actually,
Well,
I guess
everyone has an
has
accent. I mean,
You have a
yeah.
Singaporean accent.
I think if you were out in the world, any Singaporean would identify you as Singaporean.
Absolutely. That's
right?
how we notice
you
one
know
another.
each other.
Yeah. And Singaporean and Malaysian, similar,
Yeah,
but
true.
slight difference too.
It's
True.
very, slight
Very
difference.
slight.
But yeah.
I probably wouldn't be able to recognize the difference between the Malaysian and Singaporean necessarily if I was abroad. If I saw someone in London and heard it, I'd probably be like, ooh, Singaporean. They could end up Malaysian, right?
yeah.
But for you would definitely
I can
know.
tell.
Yeah.
I can tell some certain words when they speak in what they call Manglish. Okay. It differs from the Singaporean English.
Yeah.
But I think both of us, if I may jump in, we have what they call the mission school English.
What is a mission school English?
That's the thing. That's why the people say we are snobs or arrogant or
you
because
speak
of
the atas English.
the atas English. But you see, that's the thing. But we can code switch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
exactly.
we need to go out and I talk to my whoever, we can code switch, and so I think that's what is goes for us, it's against us in the world out there.
Yeah.
What
I
about
think I would
yourself,
call
though?
it like crafted
Yeah,
Singapore
crafted, is
English,
it?
right? Because you've been, that's just my own personal, because you've been taught it very specifically. And then even more so than just the school upbringing, then you've gone into media,
and
right?
home environment
and
as
home
well.
environment,
Home
is
environment
big
as well, yeah.
But then you've also been very specifically trained in your professions, right? I mean, you're actually trained in your,
Your
good
Rostan will
old 938
do
days,
tests.
Media Corp,
Oh, yeah,
CNA. I mean, you know newscaster English, right? And you can do that. And then in acting and everything, you've learned to speak in a very specific way.
We've been very fortunate as actors in Singapore to be able to learn different accents, to put on different accents for different characters, different roles.
Right.
But when I was on radio, and this is where I'm going off tangent again, I wasn't on news because I was on a music station. So we do morning show, the breakfast show. It's always ha ha ha, laugh, laugh, laugh. And back in the day where people weren't so woke, we could do accents. And I wouldn't say get away with, that's not a good word to say, but we could have fun with them because we were doing characters. then things started to change because some cultures got a bit affronted when you put on an accent, that even though it wasn't meant to poke fun at people. So then we started going, oh, okay, then how? And then on radio we
What
said,
do you mean by then how?
then how?
Sorry,
And
that's
then
English for
how?
you. Then how?
Then how?
How?
We couldn't even speak Singlish on radio back in the early days.
Even though you were from a music entertainment station?
Yeah. So now it's sort of changed a little bit, but you still couldn't go full on blah, 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 blah. You have to speak in proper grammar with a Singlish accent. Just like, okay.
Yeah, and isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting because that's not us.
No,
You
and
hear-
it's not your listener either.
No, absolutely. But
Right?
that's not what happens on Malaysian radio. They speak the way that people on the street speaks. So if you identify, you connect.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, how does accents work?
Yes, of course. Yeah, because the way that we speak really identifies the us versus them, right? I mean, going all the way back in history, back to tribal caveman days, that was the way we could identify if someone was part of our tribe or not. I mean, even if you go to the Bible, the stories of Shibboleth and how they would use that word. And if you were from one group, they said it as Sibboleth with an S, and the other group said it with the SH. And that was how they knew. Were you a traitor or were you part of the group? I mean, if I think about Canadian versus American English, right?
What's it all about?
And yeah, exactly. That's my test. That's my test word.
Yeah,
how do you
I-
say? I listen. I
Yeah, me
wait.
too.
Wait.
I wait for the OUT.
Wait until about. And how do they say it? And I know that's not totally fair,
Yeah.
but because not everyone
I
says
know, I
that,
know.
of course.
We love the Canadians,
But
we do.
it's a stereotype, but it's true. Like you'll hear it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, they're Canadian. I'm not ever going to ask them if they're American because they really don't like that. So that's what I do. But I don't know. Is there something like that for Singapore or Singapore, Malaysia? Maybe what is it you listen for to know the difference?
I think in Singapore it's not so distinct in terms of you can't say, oh, I've got a Pongal accent.
I mean, probably not within Singapore.
But I have
It's too
made
small.
fun of, I don't know if made fun, made reference to the Bukit Timah accent.
Oh,
What do you mean by Bukit Timah
The
accent?
Bukit Timah accent, because where do the Bukit Timah people go to school? On Bukit Timah Road most of the time.
The school you went to?
You as well. Don't
yeah, I was
say
going to say.
Don't say me. No, but I jest. But you know what I'm saying. But when I listen to Malaysians speak English, for example, because a lot of my friends are stand-up comedians as well, and I listen to the cadence and the intonations and they do have a different. Their OOD sounds are different from us. Like blood. They don't say blood. They say blood. You know, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, yeah, brother. So that's another thing I wanted to ask, because I live in Malaysia as well. So now when I go into a Grab, for example, and it's a Malay person, to be able to, and to be able to be understood, I speak with a slight Malay lilt. The accent, you know, like hey brother, I'm going to the market. Could you maybe turn right here? You know, things like that. So then my partner goes, "Hey, don't patronize them." I say, "I'm not patronizing them."
Yeah.
But then if he is a white person speaking like that, would that come across patronizing?
Yeah, there's such a fine line, right? There's such a fine line between how do you speak in a way that's best understood and then when does it come off as patronizing. So for example, I learned right away in Singapore, if my aircon guy came to service my aircon and I say, oh, you know, I think it's clogged and it's having all these problems, it's doing that. No, I learned right away. I just say, uncle, it's choked.
Oh.
It's choked.
Okay.
I learned that from him. So he's like, oh, it choked on. And I'm like, what do you mean choked? Yeah, choked. And then I had to put together like, what could that mean? Okay, choked, clogged.
Yeah, clogged.
Okay, I think we're talking about the same thing. And so I do that quite a bit where I'll change maybe my vocabulary to suit, but I typically try not to change my accent so much. And the reason for that is there's a very clear hierarchy of accents.
Let's talk about that one.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, you've already pointed to it actually, because you've talked about, you know, the Bukit Timah accent.
Okay.
And we look at that as like the atas accent, and that's the high class, and it means something. If you speak that way, it's elite.
Right.
We hear from the government, speak good English. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Is it more British? Of course it is. It's the only language you were allowed to speak on the radio. You weren't allowed to speak with your Singlish and your Singapore words, right? So we have this hierarchy of what is socially acceptable, what is considered to be proper. And then it kind of goes down, 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 down. And a lot of that is intersectional, meaning it has to do with race in a lot of cases, it has to do with social class in a lot of cases, and also changes depending on where you are in the world. When we talk about accents in the UK, they are very, very much linked to social class. And the conversations around accent bias in the UK right now are all talking about social mobility. Whereas in America, when we talk about accents, they're typically ethnically related. So we can hear what linguist John McWhorter calls a black scent. We can hear Black English. We can tell the race of the person when we hear them speak. I can also pick up whether someone is Latino, Latina, and we can hear it. Whereas here in Singapore, I'm not sure if it's maybe more related to class, if it's related to race, is it related? And you can hear some of those things.
It's race.
Yeah, even though you started with your wonderful pledge and we hear the message all the time that we're one Singapore, there are definitely these small differences and hierarchies and distinctions. And a lot of that does come through in language.
So how can accents work for people and how can they work work against ourselves for whatever accents we own and have.
Well, if you're lucky to be born into a prestige accent, which I was globally, right? I mean, British and American English, even in Singapore, because we still have a very strong colonial mindset. We still have the Speak Good English movement that places British English on the pedestal. So for me, walking into Singapore, I was able to start a company in communication skills, age 27, and CEOs wanted me to teach them. And I'm looking at them going, I've never had a corporate job. I know a lot about what I'm doing. Obviously, I had to be good at what I was doing or I couldn't have lasted this long. So they were right to have me help them. But it was the concept of a local Singaporean, I don't think ever could have done that. They wouldn't have been given the same respect. But because I was foreign educated, I was obviously foreign, I had an American accent, that was seen as more eloquent, as more professional, as something to be admired, as something somebody wanted. So for me, I'm very aware of this fact that my business here has been extremely built on privilege. I'm very clear about that. And even today, looking at the other side of when it works against you, the majority of my clients, I get the phone call from HR and say, well, we really want to promote this person to the C-suite, but we just don't think he's global enough.
Oh, meaning what? Because it's definitely
meaning
not.
What?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. What exactly do you mean by that? And it's very strange, right? And they'll say, well, he needs, and I'm saying he because it's typically a he. He needs to represent the company on global stages. He needs to speak to the media. He needs to be, interacting with our international clients. And, he just doesn't really sound global.
Okay. All right. So the question is, what does sound
What is
global?
global?
What
So
is
I push and push and push and push until they just say, yeah, he just sounds too Singaporean. Can you make him sound more like you? And I will push to that point and make them say that because I think it's important for them to say it out loud and recognize what they're asking me to do, which is, can you change this person and make him sound more American so that it appeases our global stakeholders and so that we can all look at him as an example of someone who is an eloquent speaker? And what does that then say about Singapore English? Yeah. And these are Singaporeans calling me. They're Singaporeans on the board. Why aren't we acknowledging and accepting and respecting Singapore English?
I take offense to that, actually.
Right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the person is made CEO not because of his English or he sounds, because he is CEO worthy.
Yeah.
His abilities, I suppose.
Exactly.
His capabilities.
And maybe it's his personality. A lot of it's a confidence as well, facing public, and not everyone is public facing.
Yeah.
So I mean, we train people as well. So we deal with a lot of lack of confidence, actually.
Exactly.
And that, I won't say blame, but that could also come from this whole education system where you're told not to say anything. So everyone goes like this.
And if you are going to say something, it needs to be proper English.
Yeah, and if your background isn't trained in that or you weren't brought up that way, it's hard.
Yeah, and
It's
you're
so
constantly
hard.
being told that the way that you speak in standard Singapore English, it's not good enough. That's not good enough. So if you've been told that your whole life through your education, and then again, when you get to your job, and then you're at the top of your career and you've been in a company 25 years and they don't want to promote you because they don't like the way you speak.
Yeah.
It seems like the most ridiculous reason.
Yeah.
But it also points to how accepted this form of bias and discrimination is. It's the last acceptable form of discrimination in the workplace. That people can call me and tell me, we don't like the way he talks. Can you
never
fix
thought
it?
about that, discrimination, accent
Yeah,
discrimination.
Absolutely.
And then
That's
you're
what this is.
And that's why we're talking about accent bias. Hello.
okay, I'm sorry. Rude leh, you. Sorry. I'm learning from Heather.
I know, there's so much to learn.
But that's really the problem, right? So it comes out in hiring decisions. It comes out in promotion decisions.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Where you talk to someone and you immediately discount what they're saying. You don't respect them at the same degree because of the way that they speak, not necessarily because the ideas are good or bad or their background, their experience, but you're hearing the accent. And this is happening very unconsciously. People aren't even aware this exists. They don't even stop and think about it. They don't think about how culture has taught us the villain always has a foreign accent, right? Look at all Hollywood films. All the villains are German, they're Russian, they're, it's whatever the global enemy is throughout
It's also
time.
media's faults, right?
Yes,
Mass media.
Yeah.
But so how can we then diminish this bias?
Well, we'll never get rid of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
so like, we'll
that's
bring it down.
impossible.
We need Heather to,
Impossible.
shout even louder about this.
Yeah, I
this
have
whole
to shout
bias.
louder.
And we're giving you a platform too, because
Yeah, and
we
thank you
feel
for that.
that same injustice that
Absolutely.
so many people have undergone in that sense of how they're sounding. But what in the first place formed this sort of biasness within us subconsciously that is actually playing at the back of our minds? I mean, at the job interview, at the boardroom discussion, at a presentation for proposals.
Well, the linguistic research goes in two directions. So we have one direction that's focused on cognition and processing fluency. So how difficult is it to understand the accent? So we have a whole line of research that's saying, well, it's because there's a higher mental load when we're trying to understand an accent that is different from our own. Therefore, we get tired. Therefore, we switch off. Therefore, we don't listen anymore. And then that ends up meaning that we maybe don't respect them as much. We don't connect with them. We don't do anything socially with them, and we keep them at a distance. That's one theory. The other side is looking at stereotype and stigma. And that is really looking at, first of all, this idea of the tribalism that we talked about, the us versus them, that, you're already hearing language in your mother's womb. And then the people who take care of you as a baby, you're already hearing the patterns of the language. You can identify someone who is different from you, even as a child. I learned that in Denmark when I went up to my niece for the first time. She's 1 year old, and I couldn't speak Danish at that time. And I started speaking English, and she just would scream and scream and scream, like, you don't sound like my mommy, you know? And so we know that. We have an instinct that you are other. But then on top of that, we have our culture, what we're taught from our teachers, from our parents, from the media, from the music, from the films. Why are most of the Asian characters in American films comic relief? Right? Why do they have a heavy Chinese accent? Why? Yeah, if you just think the villains, always a foreign accent, you can see how we've been taught.
Yeah.
Taught. Whereas the hero of the story always has the beautiful Hollywood hero American sound, right? So this is where it develops, and it's internalized. Then we also have our own experiences throughout life. You call a call center to fix your computer, and who picks up the phone? And you're angry and you're frustrated, and then you can't understand the person, and he doesn't know anything, and you're so riled up, and then you have that memory embedded in your body. And then the next time when you have a colleague from that same place who sounds like that, what do you immediately
Everything
think?
surfaces again.
Yeah, what do you immediately think? Like, this person knows nothing, they're uneducated, I can't understand them. And it comes
There's a lot
right.
to unpack.
There's a lot to unpack. And to imagine we're going around all the time completely oblivious to this, by the way. unless you really start checking your biases.
Wow.
You know?
I think I'm guilty of that.
I think we all are guilty.
We all are. We all are.
And I just tell you this because I just recently traveled to Hong Kong and Shanghai. And because I'm Cantonese, so I've got a bias for Cantonese. I love the language and I love the accent. I thrive in that environment. And in Hong Kong, the moment I hear a Chinese accent, I go, you know, it's like, but I'm not even Hong Konger or I'm like, but it's just weird that
you just
way.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I hear someone from the mainland speak, I just go, mainland. You know, and I'm like, why am I even saying that? I don't even live here. I'm not even Hong Kong for, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I suddenly, the Hong Kong people, I mean, I'm generalizing, but that's what they do too. They go like, oh, you're not from here, you're from the mainland, you know? That
they do it when they come here as well, right?
Yeah. But there's just so many nodes and points, I suppose, because accent relates to language, relates to
culture,
nationality, relates to behavior,
which
right?
then we
you hear everything in a voice.
They're all connected.
Yes. If you hear someone's voice, your brain starts categorizing. That's what we do to make sense of the world. There's nothing wrong with that. It's what we do naturally. So we hear a voice, we assign a gender to that voice.
Right.
We can often hear sexuality in a voice. We hear age. We hear race. We hear education level. We assign a social status. We hear all of that just listening to the voice. Anyone who is just listening to me on your Spotify version, if they aren't watching us on YouTube right now, if they're listening to us only, they have a whole image in their mind of what I look like, of how old I am, where I'm from, what my education is, without me even talking about any of those things. They've already decided. And that vocal image, we walk around with that all the time, and people are perceiving us that way. But then it's a matter of how aware are you of the categories that you've created for a person or a voice, and then how aware are you of the decisions you're making based on those categorizations? Because there's nothing wrong with being able to hear that someone is Black, for example. That's natural. Any American in America will 100% be able to recognize a Black speaker over the phone. Then what do I do with that knowledge? Do I decide not to invite that person for an interview?
Right, I see. That's where the biasness might set in or not.
It could set in because I've recognized this person is Black.
Right.
If I'm racist, that means maybe I don't invite that person for an interview. The opposite happened to a colleague of mine here in Singapore. She's from America, Black. She had spoken on the phone with a potential client, went to the office, and when she showed up, this was a white Brit who was meeting her. He looked at her, he said, "Oh, you didn't sound Black on the phone."
What does that mean?
That was the first thing that came out of his mouth. The first
But
thing
of
that
course he
came out
didn't
of
mean
his
to be
mouth.
rude, right?
He didn't,
Yeah.
but the minute it came out of his mouth, she said he realized, and she's heard that before, and she said, "Well, what does Black sound
Yeah, what
like?
is that exactly?
What does Black sound like?" Because again, it's also very much influenced by where you're from, your education, your family, everything else, right?
Sure.
And so she doesn't speak in a way that people would typically recognize as Black, and therefore she had that response. So it's really, how do you then act? And the problem is many people don't realize they're acting on those biases. They don't realize that they've gone through that process of categorizing and defining a person, and then they make choices based on that.
Right. So that is the sort of awareness that you'd like to raise in our audience to catch ourselves before we make decisions based on how someone sounds.
Right.
But talking about how people sound, let's talk about, that TV show that we all grew up in with the 70s and 80s.
Oh my goodness.
Mind Your Language.
Talk about stereotyping and categorizing people.
Yes.
Yeah,
Completely.
That was a great way to ingrain some biases, right?
It was entertaining. I mean, just watching it on
okay,
Channel 5.
back, you must
But
admit,
times have
back
changed.
then. Yeah,
But
back
times
then
have
there was something
changed.
else to watch.
So I guess now on hindsight, there was more harm than good.
Well, it was really teaching us a lot of things, right? That it's
It
okay to
was.
laugh at foreigners. It's okay to
was.
make fun of language. It's okay to make fun of accents.
Of cultures, in
Of culture.
fact.
Yeah, there was a lot
There
of
was a lot of
cultural
cultural references.
Oh, yeah.
Even mannerisms
Right.
were mocked.
And dress and
dress.
yeah, all of it.
It was back in that time where I guess
We might say we didn't know better.
we didn't know better.
We hadn't woken up
We
yet.
weren't woke enough.
we definitely hadn't woken up.
Yeah.
We didn't know better, which is sort of a cop out. But
But then again, sorry I'm to interrupt, but it was all white British people that did it.
yeah,
You see?
Yeah.
The people of other
Exactly.
colors had no say in the script writing. And if you weren't, because I worked with the Chinese actress after that years later in the Monkey King, the Hallmark series that I did. She was there as one of my.
Was she the Chinese lady?
Chinese
what was her
lady.
name?
She's Malaysian, you know.
Oh, huh?
Yeah, she's Malaysian.
wow.
My little red book. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so she said she was hungry as an actor. You're new, you're young. What do you do? You're just in the 70s. You do what the writers tell you to do, and they're all inevitably white people on the BBC. Yeah, so yeah.
And it was very clear on the BBC at that time what proper English was.
Yes, of
because
course.
at that time it was very clear it was Queen's English that was the only English allowed on the BBC, even though it was in the very early 80s they switched to allowing regional accents. But even today there's been a lot of talk about this because over the great majority are still very much the Queen's, now King's English variety, even though they say, we're open to regional accents, we want you to sound like the people, but it doesn't really play out like
Still
that.
on the BBC.
Yes, still.
I guess it's just that very deep, long-lasting legacy of sorts. It's so deep and ingrained.
It is.
It's tough to pull up the roots.
Yeah,
It's
But
interesting to hear, though. I mean, I go down under to Australia because Australia used to do that with the Queen's English back then as well, you know. But then now, if you hear the ABC, listen to the ABC on radio, it's really very varied, and you hear broad Aussie accents as well on radio. But then my partner gets a bit like, why am I hearing these really broad accents? So
because then there's all of those ideas again of, well, that shouldn't be on the radio. That's
Because
not good
that's
enough,
working
right?
class accents,
That's not proper. And you can see how those biases come out again.
Yeah.
So when people say like, how do I know if I'm biased or not? I just say, well, what's your favorite accent? And then it's like, bing, they know exactly what it is. What's the sexiest accent? They know. What accent do you hate? And if they'll whisper that one. And then I said, well, there you go. There are your biases right there.
see.
Now be aware of it, because you're giving unearned status to those that you really like and enjoy listening to and think are proper. And you're downgrading people who have accents that you don't like.
Gosh, I don't even know if I've got that kind of, because I love it.
Because you love them all.
I love all kinds of accents, and if I could, I would learn like how to speak Afrikaan or
Hungarian.
No, it's not Hungarian.
Polish.
Your accents are as good as mine, Stanley.
You sound like you're from Transylvania.
Transylvania. But again, coming back to accents as well. It was important enough, I believe, for NASA, and that's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration in the United States to realize, hey, this is important for our guys to know about and to incorporate in the way they go about doing their work. So tell us more about that engagement that NASA had with you to train the staff.
Wow.
Yeah, well, they contacted me in 2022. And at that time, this is the biggest problem, is that accent bias isn't really very well known. There are people who integrate bits of this into their cross-cultural training programs, into presentation skills training, articulation training, pronunciation programs. They might talk about this a bit, but there are very few programs out there that are dedicated to accent bias and raising awareness in this. So when they called me, they said they had been looking for me for 4 years.
Wow.
They were looking for someone for 4 years that could train on accent bias. And I said, well, I have a course ready to go, but I've never run it because I've never been able to find a company that took it seriously and really understood it and was interested. So it doesn't surprise me NASA was the one to be forward thinking about this, because they were rated as like the best government agency for diversity and inclusion 12 years running. So they're very forward thinking, and they had been doing pulse surveys and yearly surveys around diversity and inclusion and looking at the complaints as well. And more was coming up around language and accent.
Really?
And so that was the reason they were looking for someone to come in. So I was running that program for a couple of years until the beginning of this year when an executive order canceled all
I wonder which one.
diversity and inclusion
all
training. And although I would really classify this under general communication skills, right? I mean, it's not necessarily DEI, but with bias in the title, that's where it falls.
I see.
So it was cut 90 minutes before I was about to run the class at midnight because I was doing it online for a full America audience, right? All the way across the US. So I would run it from midnight to 3 a.m, 2 nights in a row. But it was a really, really excellent program. And there just aren't really any programs like this. There are a handful. I know that one has started this year at University of Edinburgh, where they are training staff and students on accent bias primarily because of the social class issues there. University of Leeds has included it in their diversity and inclusion statements now. They've included accent along with all the other diversity categories. Accent Bias Britain, also in the UK, runs some talks, small trainings. And there are a handful of academics, some practitioners that give some talks. But as far as I know so far, my course is the main one that's doing full day long, raising awareness about this.
So who would you say would be a client that would use this course? I mean, besides NASA, I mean... Any
multinational should really be learning about this,
with 100%. With a plethora of people from everywhere around the world.
And they're working with people online, regional teams, anybody working with someone with a different accent. I mean, it's basically everybody now, anybody in Singapore. Even the Singapore companies could use this awareness because they're the ones calling me, telling me that their person isn't global enough, right?
So how do you deal with that then? Do you then change that person to speak like you?
It's a very sticky situation I'm put in because I'm walking this, I call it the line of hypocrisy because I'm, on the one hand, I want to tell the client, you be you, and there's nothing wrong with how you speak, and you have every right to speak the way that you speak, and that's you. It's your identity. It's your culture. And then at the same time, I know if we don't do something, they're not going to get the promotion.
Yeah, right.
So how do I help that individual while still honoring the fact that I don't believe or agree with them having to change? It's really difficult, and that's why so much of the start of my career has been focused on the client and helping them to articulate in a way that might be better understood by others. Remember the word endings and make sure your sounds are distinct and without trying to change accent, so to speak. But now, since we have woken up a lot more in the world, I'm able to now finally start pushing on the other side and say, you know what, why don't we also run a program for your leaders to better understand these accents or why it's important to honor accents? That is a much harder sell because people don't recognize that there's a challenge. It's hard to walk in and say, you have a problem that you don't know about and I'm going to fix it. So until people really become aware that this is an issue, it's difficult. UK is definitely leading in that sense. America was starting to understand. But we have a long, long way to go. We're at the very first baby step of understanding accent bias.
I find that as I train people, a lot of them start to, it's just not just because of accent. I think because they are not confident in the language that we are perhaps conducting the class in. And then they shut down because they go, I'm never going to be able to present, for example. How do you deal with a situation like that when it comes to, it's not about accent anymore, but language as well?
Well, the same thing goes for language. So my TEDx in 2018 was called 2 Billion Voices, How to Speak Bad English Perfectly. And the whole point of that talk was to say there is no perfect English. There is no proper English. This is socially constructed. We don't have an academy that writes the rules and says everyone in the whole world must speak this way. That does not exist. These are all social constructions. So it's about recognizing that the way that you speak is good. even if other people might consider it bad, or the Speak Good English campaign doesn't consider it correct, you are still speaking. As long as you are speaking and the person you are speaking to understands you, communication has been successful.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter how you have expressed yourself or what words you have used or what accent you have. If you are understood and you can understand, that is success.
Yep. So
And-
it's sender to receiver.
Exactly.
It's been
Understood. And it's great because if you want to go on the global stage, then that person will have to do it and improve that person's path by themselves, right? If I want to go on the global stage and I can't be understood, then I'll go for a course that will help me.
Yeah, and even in that case, it's more about those intelligibility factors, right? Of maybe choosing the right words that fit that particular audience, or changing just slightly the way you pronounce a T or a D instead of the way you were pronouncing it. It can be such minor things, really small things that can make a large difference. But the other side of that as well is that audience, and it's up to them to meet halfway, and that's the side that we're missing right now.
Absolutely.
Is that responsibility on the part of the listener to say, "Oh, I also need to be making an effort here." I get so surprised when people say, "Oh, but it's so hard to understand the accent." Well, how hard do you think it is for them to speak your language? Like, what? That is such a bad excuse.
Yeah,
Believe me,
right.
they're making a much, much, much larger effort than you are listening to them.
Because they're speaking
They're actually
English, which is
speaking
not
your
their first language.
right?
Some people,
And in the case of a foreign accent, we have the same kinds of problems just with regional accents as well, of course. So it's not only ethnic and foreign,
Heather, it sounds like you've got your work cut out for you. It's like you're if I can borrow that phrase, a voice in the desert, calling out for people to just be aware of accent
Where'd that come from?
bias.
Did you just make up that quote? Or?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think it's from the Bible.
Oh, is it?
Oops. But, definitely hearing you out, it's going to have so much impact on individuals, on organizations, society, and even internationally, right? The way we perceive each other across nations. And I think we saw a little bit of that recently with POTUS and meeting other government leaders and saying, "Oh, you speak good English. Where did you learn your English?"
So can I be the Italian Prime Minister and do this?
Stop rolling your eyes. Yeah, so lots of work to be done, and we're glad that I think there are not many people like you who are just dedicating so much attention to accent bias. Are there in the world?
A few handfuls. There are a lot of academics that are looking at this.
But we need more preachers.
Yeah, we need more practitioners out there.
Yes.
Typically call myself a practitioner, not a preacher, but
Oh, I'd love to do this course. I along with my linguistics.
yeah, we do need a lot more practitioners. But it's spreading. I think English teachers are really starting to have a much greater understanding of these issues. They're changing the way they're teaching pronunciation in classes. They're changing the types of examples of varieties of English that they use in the classroom to broaden that, right, to make it more international and global, because there are just, and it's important to remember too, it's only 25% of the world speaking English.
Absolutely right.
There's 75% that aren't a part of this conversation right now. And of that 25%, only 25% of that are the native speakers.
Yeah.
And Singaporeans aren't included in that, by the way. We're talking the white Westerners that are the native speakers.
Yeah.
And only 3% of English speakers speak the King's English. So if you're looking at only those varieties as your standard, you have a very limited view of the world,
Absolutely.
right? An incredibly limited view of the world. So we really need to listen to all voices. And unfortunately, it's not even a problem just in English. It's a problem in all languages. So that's important to mention, because believe me, in the comments section under this, everyone's going to say, but it's not just English.
Yeah, no.
It's not just English. We know that. It's every language we see this.
Thank you for being with us, Heather. It's been so interesting, and I think I've learned a lot. Yes, and Stanley and you have been friends. And but if other people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Well, they can get onto Heather's website, which is globalspeechacademy.com, and they can also follow Heather on LinkedIn as well. Just search Heather Hansen, Hansen spelled Hansen.
Absolutely, not the Hansen. No, not that
Different one.
Different one. So thank you, Heather, once again
Thank you.
for joining
Thanks
us.
so much.
So there you've got it, another episode of the Leong Farm with Stanley and me. If you want to catch all the episodes, including season 1, you can go on to
Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify, and also if you're more a visual learner, do check us out also by searching on YouTube the Leong Form.
All right, till next episode, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Watch your accent.
Bye-bye.